Welcome to Drive Time, Celebrate 2026. I'm Erin Hiley. I'm your host today, and I'm fortunate to be joined today by Teresa Prindle. I'm looking forward to talking with Teresa. I've had the opportunity to get to know her over my time at Anderson with her. She's one of the first people I met, and I've learned that she is empathetic, generous, diligent, hardworking, and when you work with her, she really knows how to get a project done in a really inclusive way. But one of the most fascinating things about Teresa is that she has a depth of experience, a breadth of experience, unlike most people I've ever met. So I'm looking forward to getting to know more about that today. And I think I want to start with the fact that she's a master of blending creativity with business. And my first question to you today, Teresa, welcome, by the way, is what started that for you, the blend of creativity and business?
Well, first, Erin, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here and honored to be asked and to talk to you. It's been such a delight. I've been able to work with you in our study group. You're a phenomenal person to work with, and you're brilliant. So the fact that you chose me to speak with is right here. Business and creativity. Interesting question. Actually, I was thinking about this as I drove over here this morning. And as a kid, I had a stuffed animal collection, right? Like every other kid. And I think I had over 100 stuffed animals. And I would create circus shows for people to come see with my stuffed animals. And you know, the paint swabs that you get at Home Depot that have like the 5 or 6 colors? I would get those and then I would cut them and have each color be a ticket. And I would pretend to sell them to my friends and my neighbors and my family, whoever would come and see the show, and we would do pretend money. And then I would put on this show so it really has been my entire life. I think I might've been maybe 5 or 6 when I did that.
I love that it came naturally, that you knew that your talents needed to be compensated.
Yeah.
So before you realized that you wanted to work in entertainment, where were you? Where was your head? What were you doing?
Well, it's funny because there's only 3 things I've ever wanted to do in my life. And 1 was always entertainment. 2 was politics. And then in 6th grade, I wanted to be an archaeologist, but I quickly realized that science is not my forte. And so I wasn't going to make it in that area. But I would leave, back in the day, you had answering machines, right? And you would leave those funny messages. And I pretended once that I was an archaeologist, off in Egypt doing an excavation. And so I was always an entertainment element to it, right? But it's funny because sometimes I forget that I always wanted to do entertainment and be politically involved. And my childhood friends will tell you that I'm exactly where I said I would be, doing exactly what I said I would be doing to an extent, right? And so throughout my entire life, it was always really heavily driven in entertainment. And when I even think about college, I told you that I worked at Walt Disney World, and I worked at Muppet Vision 3D. It was super fun, and I had to do the spiels in front of the crowds. And I worked at, I would do productions there, right? So I worked on an NSYNC concert and all of these different things. And then I also had my own radio show in college, which we share, right? The affinity for radio. And yeah, I just, going back ever since I could remember, it was always the path. And even though what I wanted to do in those areas maybe not have been weren't always fully developed, but I kind of always knew that would be the path that I would go. And even as a kid, my dad used to call me the sitcom queen, because I watched so many sitcoms and I loved TV so much, and I would talk about it to anyone who would listen. So I think I just kind of always knew innately that I would work in that area, because storytelling is so powerful in every respect.
That's amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have a lot of things to be envious of there. I certainly do. I mean, figuring out at a young age that one of the things that you wanted to do, maybe your skill set didn't match that. So you didn't waste a lot of time and you turned that into an entertainment adjacent type of experience. That's incredible. I guess as I also sit here listening, I'm thinking, there's a few folks in our class that, have entertainment as a career. And I grew up in LA, and I feel like I know what that should mean. What does that mean, a career in entertainment?
Well, it's so interesting because the career path that I always thought of in terms of entertainment was very very small. It was like, how do you make TV and film? And that was actually from an execution standpoint. And so, as I worked in entertainment long enough, then you kind of learn, and even being at Anderson, you learn a little bit more about what is entertainment like on the corporate side. And all the different, now entertainment is so expansive, way more expansive than when I first started. But for me, it was really physical production from ideation to final delivery, whether that was a large scaled event or a scripted TV show or an unscripted TV show or a feature film. What are the principles of that production? How do you, where does the idea start? How do you get that idea made? And so, really, I'm at a loss for words in my own experience of how to create, TV and film. But yeah, it really is the execution of it. So when I think about, and I've done a lot of different things in entertainment, both creative and from a logistical and budget standpoint. So when you're thinking about how to make a show, I mean, it could take thousands of people. I mean, it could also take 30 people. It depends on the size and the scope of the show. But if you're doing a creative producer, that looks very different than doing a line producer, right? Or in film, if you're a producer, maybe you are finding the money to make that film. So it kind of really depends on what type of project that you're doing. And largely, I think in the last 6 years, I'll give you that for an example, I worked a lot on docuseries. And so I would line produce docuseries. And what that would look like is you are really the cross-functional leader. You have to make sure that every department head is talking and they're all working together. They're all working within budget. You're tracking all of their costs. You're making sure that the train stays on the track. And depending on the scope of kind of what they've given you to be a line producer, that could be even way more than the title, which is what I've experienced, right? So in our groups, an easy way to think about that in our groups really is that we work in our study groups is there's always someone that's the project manager that herds all the cats, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully so. And by default, I feel like I've done that in a lot of the groups. But, so it's interesting. So then on top of all that, keeping everybody in the communication loop and making sure we're staying on schedule, on budget. You're also doing all the financial forecasting and analysis and paying all the vendors, and then also giving all those reports, not only to your production executives, but your network executives. I think I could go on this for a tangent, so I'm going to stop there to see if you have any questions.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of interesting things in there, but I think what comes to mind right now is the idea of that cross-functional intersection. To me, that's a little bit about what Anderson teaches, is a good cross-function, and through the group work and through our class studies. Do you find an analogy there, or do you find that the Anderson experience was very different than that?
No, I think the Anderson experience really complemented it, because in our EMBA program, right, there's no one industry that kind of overshadows another. We're kind of equally diverse. So because I come from that entertainment background, and I'm used to not only working with different experts within my own show, I have to work with the department heads that oversee the tech, and then that oversee maybe social media and marketing, and that oversee the production and the creative. And they all think very differently, and they have very different skill sets. And just like our class. So everyone comes from a different industry, but because I'm used to having conversations with all different types of people, because also when you're working on a show, it's not just the people that are on your team, it's what are you filming. Like I worked on Undercover Boss, Hell's Kitchen, Super Bowls, right? So you have to be able to communicate with people that are in all different types of industries by nature of what you're filming, which is exactly like our class. So coming in and being able to talk to people from different industries, whether you're a CFO, a CEO, a head of a neurology or whatever, like that part didn't intimidate me because I was like, oh, you just have a different skill set than I do.
So, so with that kind of natural symbiotic growth into Anderson or layer of Anderson, what do you think at Anderson surprised you? Either in a way that you were like, oh, I don't know that I signed up for this, or wow, that was really a learning opportunity that I didn't expect to have?
Honestly, the number one thing that surprised me the most is how fast it goes. I've literally never experienced a faster time in my life. It is really wild. Another thing that surprised me is how much like people that are really successful want to keep being successful in all areas. Like the amount of people in our class that have multiple degrees and masters in different areas. Like we have doctors, right? They went to medical school. Now they want to get their MBA. That part also was very interesting to me. I was like, oh, like continuing education, which I think is so important. And that so many people in our class really share that.
And I know we've talked before about the networking aspect. I would just think, oh, people in entertainment are really good at networking. And I know that you had maybe some surprises about your Anderson experience with your thoughts about networking. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I did really think that I was a great networker coming into Anderson because one, I naturally kind of keep in touch with everybody I've ever known my entire life. And then two, one way, because I worked a large part of my career in freelance, and then there's a lot of permalance in there too, right? Because there's companies that I've worked with for 14 years. But because you will never make it in freelance if you can't network. But it's much different than strategic networking, right? Like that 20-minute networking book that we got from Career Service Development Team is
when we started at orientation.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Being very specific, like keeping in touch with people is much different than strategic networking. Like reaching out to someone and being like, oh, hey, I am a student at Anderson. I'm really interested in what you do. I'd love to learn more about your stories. Here is 3 questions that I'd love to ask. Do you have 20 minutes that we could do a quick conversation? And being very specific about that ask. And then in those 20 minutes, like making sure that you're hitting those points so you don't feel like you're wasting their time. And then at the end asking, oh, is there anyone else that you would recommend that I talk to next?
And so with that learning, which by the way is super courageous, I remember getting that book and going, oh my God, can I ever do this?
Yeah.
So I love the example. How is that benefiting you right now? And maybe even more like, where are you right now in your career journey coming to the end of Anderson?
That's a great question. So how the networking has benefited me while at Anderson has been great. I have actually probably met with over 100 people since I've been at Anderson. So strategically, which is exhausting, but I've done it. And that was, both for my career and then also for business plan development and BCC doing those interviews, right? But I also was very strategic in the interviews of the people that I reached out to. I always reached out to people that I would want to build a connection with going forward. So they were in an area that I think is really interesting. And while I may not ask them about anything on that call, I've now built that introductory relationship so that I can reach out to again, which has been really helpful.
And that is interesting. And I sort of know the answer to this, but so you basically decided to come to Anderson because you had a friend that told you basically to put up or shut up, right? But you turned that into a real pivot moment, I think, right? And can you talk about like what is a pivot and what is your pivot?
Absolutely. So yes, very funny. I had talked about getting my MBA for well over 10 years. It's been a goal for a really long time. And to your point, I was at breakfast with one of my best friends and I was talking again about getting my MBA and she was like, I've heard you talk about this since we met. And so either go get your MBA or give up the dream. And I literally went home and within 5 minutes, I got a remarketing ad from one of the recruiters at UCLA for a Q&A that was going to start in 5 minutes. And I got on that Q&A and there's began my journey into the experience of Anderson. And as a way of a pivot, that's a really loaded question. So I have done this with variance, the same career for a really long time. And so figuring out what are those next steps does not really come easy for me. And I think most people, because when we first started, I thought it was really funny. Like for your first quarter and 2 quarters, everybody's really on their best behavior. And they're like, yeah, here's exactly what I want to be doing with my career. This is why I came. And they have a really buttoned up story, right? And then once you all get to know each other, everyone's like, oh, I'm not sure this is what I'm here to learn. You know, people are more forthcoming about why they came to Anderson. And for me, I really was like, I really want the education. Like I had 3 very strategic goals when I came here. And that was the education, the network, and, what does that pivot look like, right? And so I was like, well, why don't I just give myself the grace of that first year, just learning, just taking everything in and seeing what am I interested in and where does that lead me to? And so I think that and I don't think a lot of people really gave themselves that grace, at least like publicly sharing that, right? And so I found some areas that I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Also, it naturally aligns with my background. And those are business development, partnerships, and also brand. I love brand strategy. And they're all 3 separate silos. Oh, they kind of all complement one another, even though they're different, which as we've talked about, the struggle is I have just a natural curiosity. So I love things that allow me to have a big scope and kind of my hands in multiple different areas.
So that's great that you were able to see how brand new things really align with your background. So that's a benefit to Anderson, right? Is there anything that you would say was just a real challenge during school?
Well, that is also a real challenge, right? Coming in and having done one thing in your career for your entire life. I've started doing this when I was like 5 or 6 with my little paint swabs and my stuffed animal shows. So there's a lot of challenges that come along with that because there are classmates, right, that I came in and they're like, oh, I'm using this to elevate within my company, or I actually just need the paper, or they're not trying to make a pivot. So being around people that really have an idea of what they're doing, along with people that are struggling to figure out what that next part of the story is also a challenge.
So do you have advice for people who are either realizing, because there are folks that are just realizing as we come to the end of school that they want to make a pivot, or people who have come to school and really don't know what's next? Like, what's your advice with dealing with that uncomfortableness and sitting in that a little bit of confusion?
Well, I think embracing it, because Naturally, I think the growth is only in being uncomfortable, right? And so, in theory, you want to grow your entire life. So that just means always being uncomfortable. And so I would just lean into that and just lean into that you don't have to have all the answers right now, and trust that right answer is going to find you, which that part is hard, right? Because trusting is not always easy. And so whatever that looks for you and how you have to get there, is going to be the best way to get there, is the best way to handle that mentally. But yeah.
So so leaning into that uncomfortableness and leaning into your ability really to focus on, these 3 areas and where you came from. I can't even believe that you have time for outside endeavors. But like we said at the start of the show, there's a lot of things that don't show up in your resume, that don't show up on your LinkedIn. I know you mentioned having, the political interest from when you were really young. Like, what do you do in your off time? Who's Teresa outside the resume?
Teresa outside of the resume. Well, yes, I'm very interested in politics. I really think you have to earn the right to complain, right? We are citizens. We need to actively engage in what we want our world to be. And so, I grew up in a family that very much prioritized voting and being a part of the democratic process. And so that was just naturally ingrained in me. And, I have throughout my time found different ways to be active in my life. And so whether that's doing, for I think 8 years or something, I was captain of a team for the Revlon Run Walk that raised money for breast cancer. And so I did that for a long time. And then I was also on my neighborhood council, as you know. So that is an elected position. There are 99 neighborhood councils in Los Angeles. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, there is. And it's so it's exciting. Every neighborhood has one. It's an elected position. And it's a volunteer position. And I was chair of the outreach committee. I ran all of our social medias. I helped with events. I was on the homelessness committee. I was on the governance committee. I was on the public safety committee.
Again, such breadth and depth of experiences. I don't even know how you have the time for it. But what do you get out of that outside the resume type of work, the volunteer work that, you talked about lifelong learning, lifelong discomfort? Does it relate in any way? Like, how does that mesh with you as a person and where you're going?
Yeah, I think that being able to see tangible results, right? Because being a community activist or a grassroots activist is very similar to being at school, being in entertainment. It's cross-functional leadership. You're dealing with all different types of people from every industries that are just your neighbors, right? So you have to learn to be able to connect and talk to people that think very differently than you and find that commonality.
It's like getting put in your first study group.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think there's some very specific, traits that you have to be able to navigate all those different areas. And I think it's just like a natural cross-functional leadership really happens in every area of your life, no matter what it is you're doing, right? Even if you're running your own household, you have to deal with all the different vendors of your household. So whether it's like grocery shopping or paying your bills or calling the cable when your cable goes out or whatever, there's always that cross-functional ality of it. And so what I actually really like about being a community activist, same as if I were working or school, is like seeing results. I like to see the actions I take and the results that it happens. Like, for example, and I know I shared this story with you, one of the best parts of being on the neighborhood council is you get a stipend of money. Usually it's not very big. I think it's smaller now. It was $30,000. You give out grants to organizations in your neighborhood. And we had LA Compost came and they wanted to pilot a program where they could collect neighbors' composting scraps at the farmers markets that are in their community. So Atwater Village has a farmers market every Sunday, and they were going to set up a little booth, collect the scraps, and then they would take it to their facility, right? They needed this $5,000 to pilot that program so that they could hopefully, with the goal, expand it across the city of Los Angeles. And I had never shamefully composted a day in my life, but they won me over, and I convinced our whole board, oh, we should give them the $5,000. And some people were like, oh, they didn't want to do it because they couldn't see the big picture of how that impacted our community directly. And I was like, oh, we get to be the pioneers of this. Now we get to say, oh, we were the first on a program that is now expanded within 6 years, or maybe 6 years and some change, to 24 different farmers markets across LA and several different composting sites. As a community, as a board, we got to go to one of the composting sites. They taught us how to compost. It was like an education. You got to actually see what they were doing and how it was going to benefit not just our city, but like the globe. Right.
Wow, that's incredible. And you guys were the pioneers for LA for that. And so every time you go to a farmer's market and see composting, you're seeing the results of your work.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I know I'm gonna have to keep my eye out at farmers markets for composting. So imagine that Drive Time decides we're gonna do a 2026. Where are they now? 2 years from now, where are you?
That's a great question. More to be revealed. If I knew the answer to that, oh man, it'd be like the best day ever. No, but I have some ideas.
Okay.
I have some ideas, right? So I came into Anderson also with some very specific goals. One, I wanted to specialize in entrepreneurship. So I've successfully completed that, right? 2, I wanted to do BCC, and I wanted to come out of Anderson at least trying to create my own business. And 3, I wanted to be something that elevated and supported women. And so whatever it is I'm doing 2 years from now, right now we're building a company in BCC, and we're seeing, okay, does this have legs? Is this something that we want to carry beyond graduation?
And that supports women also, right?
It does support women. And so that still remains to be seen, right? We still have more work to do and uncover on that to see if that's something we viably can do after graduation. But I really do see, obviously I told you the lanes that I'm interested in. The nice thing about being in entertainment is the ability to tell stories. And so it doesn't matter what I do next. I can take that storytelling element into anything I do. And 2 years from now, what I would love to say is that I am doing something that is both fulfilling for me as a person and deep in my soul, and that also can support me and in future goals, right, monetarily, and then also like something that's giving back and supporting and elevating women.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible goal, I think. And also, I'm happy to hear that it sounds like you got the ROI out of Anderson that you were looking for. I mean, you hit all the boxes.
Yeah. I definitely, look, there's a lot of ROI that is right now, and then there's ROI for the future. I got so much out of it. I actually, the other day, made a list of all the classes that I took, and it was 25. And I went through all of them, and I was like, oh my gosh, I learned so much. Like, there were things that I had never even heard of before I came to Anderson.
Like?
I'm not going to say because I don't want to embarrass myself.
Okay.
But really, the education, one, that's immediate ROI because that was a primary goal for me. Also, the network, our class, right? Like, everybody says you're going to make friends when you come to Anderson. And that's true, right? There's definitely people that I will take with me forever. Also, you get to not only just your class, you get the classes that are before and after you, the alumni network, right? You have to make an effort to do those things, right? Anderson gives you all the tools, but you have to take advantage of those tools.
That's a great piece of advice. I think that's good. I wish someone said that to me coming in, because it's a great piece of advice. You got to make it what you want it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then for future ROI, I really signed up, and one of the reasons why I actually came to Anderson, out of the 3 colleges that I was accepted to, is that the shared success model, right? I really love that shared success. We're not competitive. We all try to lift each other up. We all try to help each other. And I think for the most part, our classes really lean into that. And I really came in thinking that this is like a lifelong journey, and not just like, oh, I'm coming here to get my 2 years of ROI and then I have the degree and that's it. Because in my undergrad, I transferred colleges more times than I probably should have. But because I wasn't at one school for long enough to really build that, I'm super excited. I'm always going to go to the games. I'm always going to do the things, right? I'm going to be an active alumni. Like, I don't even live in the state that the college that I graduated with. So I came in to continually be a part of the UCLA system. Like, I think that you have to give back as well, right? Contribute to the alumni network. When someone reaches out to you on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, I'm a current student. Would you take the time to talk to me? Yes, of course. Like, how do I embed UCLA into being a part of my entire life going forward and not just now? And that's where I think you get real ROI.
Well, in the where are they now? I am really excited to hear about all the phone calls you got. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the time. I've got 2 questions I like to ask every guest. One of them I want to know, is there anything we haven't talked about that you really want folks to know about you, or is there anything, is there any ask that you have?
Oh, what do I want people to know about me?
Or an ask.
Well, I feel like I'm going to more like what I want people to know about me. I think it's interesting is that you come into this EMBA program and, like you say, entertainment means something different for every person. And you're not quite sure what the answer of entertainment is, right? Because it's so broad. And I think that now entertainment is so disrupted, right? And a lot of people in entertainment are having to make pivots. And actually, our class was the most people from the entertainment sector ever at Anderson, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's only continued that way. Because it's so disrupted, we all have to kind of find different ways on how we move forward, right? And so I think really taking the time to get to know the people in entertainment, because people don't understand it, they don't immediately see the intrinsic value of their background. And there's so many people in entertainment. I mean, if I want anything done, I will call someone that was a producer on TV shows, and I know in a nanosecond that they're going to figure out how to get it done, and in a timely, fast way. There's no like scrappier people than people that work in entertainment. So don't underestimate people that come from entertainment. And if you don't understand their background, ask the questions. How does that relate to this, right? And really try to understand, and like, don't devalue people that have that background just because you don't understand it, and try to figure out immediately what is the value that those people bring into your groups. Because at Anderson, and especially in the last year, what I hear constantly in every single one of my classes is, how do you tell your story? How do you tell your story? You're getting hammered with it in every class that you have. Well, guess what? Everyone that comes from an entertainment background in your class knows how to tell a story. So reach out to them and ask them to help you craft it, right? So, and then also ask, what can you do for the people in your class that are in entertainment and struggling to find what their next chapter is, right? Because that's really a hard place to be. And so that would be my ask.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And we still have the opportunity to do that. School's not over. And I've learned a lot through this interview that cross-functional experience really underscores what you're saying. So my last question, it's a selfish one. I just like to ask people this. I want to know, what's one thing in life you think everyone should know? Like, from teenager to, midlife to done working, man, woman, what is something that everyone should know?
Well, I thought about this on the way in because I knew that you were going to ask me this. And so I have actually two answers.
Okay.
And one, that is telling your own story. It's hard for people in entertainment. It's hard for me, right? I'm like, oh, what is the story that I want to tell? And really crafting that is a skill. And so I really think sitting and thinking and evaluating what has my life looked like and what's the story I want to tell going forward. And I think that's important no matter who you are, what age you are, what career you have, or if you whatever, all things, you should really know how to do that. And two, a really strong, practical financial education. Not like the finance course, right? You don't have to know EBITDA, but you do have to know, what does it look like to plan for my retirement? What does it look like? How do I make my money work for me? How do I save? Do I put that in a high interest savings account? Like fundamentals that one, don't usually get taught in primary education, and then two, don't get taught in adult education. And I think you really have to have a strong foundation of how to make your money work for you.
Teresa, I've got Joe Bruin here. Interesting. I was an undergrad at UCLA when they changed the mascot from what I call Wimpy Joe to Buff Joe. This is Cuddly Joe. Anyways, who would you like to give a big bear hug to today?
Oh, goodness. Well, there's been so many people in our class. I truly, truly love our class. I really think we have so many phenomenal humans. And there's three people I absolutely could not have lived without. One, Josh Burrell, JB. We call each other BB. We're Bruin besties. And then the second one is Kelly Elschliger. And I know, Kelly, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I always butcher your last name, even though you're one of my favorite people on the planet. And then Tina Schumacher. All three of those people have been so instrumental in my time at Anderson. JB, we met before, we were introduced by a 23 alum before school actually started.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we had that bond. And oh my God, I love him so much. We've got each other through so many things. I really could not have lived without him. And Kelly, oh my God, I literally talk to Kelly almost every single day. I remember, even in our marketing class, remember the curled metal case?
Yes.
Kelly and I spent 7 hours on Zoom going through every element of that case and breaking it down. She's been a tremendous friend, both personally and with school and learning and all of the things. And then Tina has really been my ride or die in school. She was in my first study group. She really, my primary goal, as I said, was always to do BCC and do a company that empowered women. And she really, since second quarter, we have been on that bandwagon together, and I would not be where I am at the end of this program without her. I have one more hug.
One more hug.
One more hug. And I will try not to tear up at this hug. It will almost be impossible. But my mentor, Cisco Henson, passed away in December. I literally, oh my God, this will be great for viewership. Tears always get more people. I I couldn't have asked for a better mentor. He literally wrote every recommendation letter. He did so much for me in my career. He would spend an hour a week teaching me anything I wanted to know, which was just our time, and I could ask any question. When I doubted whether or not I should go, as you think about, it's costly, it's both your money and your time. He really was the person that really advocated for me and pushed me to do this, regardless of any type of fear that I had. And without him, I truly would not be here. And one of the gifts actually is when he passed away in December, I was able to reach out to all the colleges and get the letters he wrote for me. Oh my God. And to have that, right? To have the letters from your mentor as a keepsake, and to really like that he wrote to Anderson, right? I have that letter. It's so meaningful. And the fact that they immediately, when I reached out to them, Anderson was like, oh my gosh, yes, here's the letter. They got it to me within the day. Profoundly, profoundly meaningful. There you go.
I almost want to do a whole series on what you can get from your mentor.
I know. It's so fresh. I can't tell it without tearing up.
Well, it's meaningful, so it's deep in you, right? Hopefully that never goes away.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you one faculty member at Anderson that really made an impression or had an impact.
For sure. Well, and I can never just say one, so I have two. Number one would be Professor Ullman. Oh my God. And people love him, right? He's one of the most beloved professors at Anderson, but he really makes you think so deeply and profoundly about your journey, both prior to coming to Anderson, at Anderson, and what you want after Anderson. He has been so helpful. We've had him for 2 classes now. I doubled down this quarter. I have both of his classes. So I was like, I need to go out on Professor Ullman while at Anderson. And then I would say Sasha Strauss for brand management. Incredible. I learned so much. He is brilliant. You obviously know his story from Foundations Week. He's an incredible professor. He's very generous with his time. I've met with him outside of class. The learnings I literally take with me every day, and it really created this passion for brand strategy.
Thank you, Teresa. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to us on Drive Time Celebrate 2026.